Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jill Stott. We'll get started in just a few minutes. In the meantime, if you would, please add your name and where you're joining us from today. We would appreciate that in the chat. Also, if you have other folks in the room joining with you, please remember to add their name and email so that we can send them a certificate for attending as well. Okay, it looks like it's slowing down from people hopping on. Again, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. If you will continue to put your name and where you're joining us from in the chat, that would be great. Also, if you have a group that you're watching with, if you would add their name along with their email, just so we can get them a certificate and information for joining. You are muted and your videos are off. Feel free to add questions into the Q&A. As we go along, we will be answering those at the end. If you'll give us a little bit of time, but we will be sending you a certificate for attending or a CEU if you're a member of one of our councils. Also a link to the recording. It is being recorded today. And you will also receive a PDF of the presentation. Okay. Today is improving workplace culture and mental health. We have Janae Cummings. Janae currently serves as the screening program director at the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee. She completed her Master of Public Health and a Community Health Education concentration and a Health Policy Graduate Certificate at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Prior to moving to Knoxville for grad school, she completed her Bachelor of Science in Exercise Science and Secondary Education at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. In addition to monitoring and analyzing mental health screenings, data across East Tennessee, Janae is passionate about workplace culture, health equity and inclusivity, mental health, and overall wellness with an emphasis on marginalized populations. Janae, thank you for joining us. If you were with us last week, you will remember she was with us last week as well. So thank you so much for being here today.
All right, so thanks for joining. If you were here last week, I promise my goal is to stay within this hour and give us some time for questions after. So our focus today is healthy and inclusive workplace culture. So what is that and how do we enact it? Since COVID, as we know, there's been an uptick or a heightened awareness of mental health and what that looks like, especially within one's workplace, as far as burnout goes. And, how are we able to continue working while living in a pandemic and dealing with racial injustices and things of that nature? So we'll kind of dive into that some. And also throughout this presentation, I'm going to ask you to use a chat feature a few times. This presentation normally is a little bit more interactive, but because we're in a webinar format, it's kind of hard to get that interaction in there, but I'm strongly encouraging you to use a chat or else it'll be a little bit awkward if you do not, but I'd like to see you guys participate and share your thoughts and some things of that nature when discussion time does come up. Hello. So our learning outcomes, our goal is to be able to identify what is a healthy, equity-focused, and inclusive workplace culture. Then we will describe and evaluate our own workplace through the lens of a healthy, inclusive, and equity-focused workplace. And finally, we'll try to develop some concrete actions that we can take to generate this healthy and inclusive workplace culture. So this is our first activity. Ideally, we'd break out into some groups and you discuss this with one another, but for the sake of being in a webinar, we won't get to do that as much. So this is an identity mapping activity. So what I would like for you to do is to take just a couple minutes, 2 minutes, to draw, if you're in a place to do that, and or imagine a large circle and a large square. In the circle, I want you to think about your visible identities. And I won't tell you what that is until the next slide. But just kind of think about when you think of visible identities, what do you think about? And then in the square, I want you to think about your invisible identities that you bring to your workplace. So yeah, take a few minutes to think about that. And then I'll check back in and we'll share some thoughts within the chat. That's awkward because normally I'd be able to read the room and see people thinking and or writing, but I can't. So all right, so now that we've had about a minute or so, I'd like for you guys to share in the chat what are some visible identities. They don't have to be your specific ones, but when you think of visible identities, what comes to mind? So go ahead and share those in the chat, and I'll read those out loud. Job title, over 50, tall, okay. Gender, oh, wait, okay. Female, middle-aged, female presenting, familial identity, age, physical attributes, gray-haired, that's funny. Parent, father, personality, truancy slash court, brown hair, glasses, single, LOL, no ring. That's funny, same girl. Tall, age and gender, over 60, redhead, place of origin, southern accent. So yes, these are all, most of these are great examples of your visible identities. So you probably thought of your race, your gender. We had height a few times. Age in the sense of if you're, gauging appearance, and attributing that with your age. So those are the things that you see. Like I am female presenting, I'm Black. I also don't have a ring, so you can imply that I'm single and or dating. I wear glasses, so I probably don't have the best eyesight. I have Black hair. So things that when you look at someone, what are you looking at? All right, so now we're going to share some of our invisible identities. What are some things that you don't see on the surface or that might not be as obvious to someone? Go ahead and drop some of those in the chat. Heart disease Christian, mother Christian, LGBTQIA plus, social worker. This is going fast. Oh, someone said, "Ha, this is where familial belonging goes." Yes. Funny, queer, immigrant, mental health diagnosis, degrees, family oriented, dog owner, intelligence, depressed, personal values, artist, mother, experience, shy, empty nester, lover of movies and shows, counselor, great on anxious, aces, millennial, hobbies, introvert. So yes, all of these great answers. So when you thought of your invisible identities, you probably thought of your religion. That came up a few times. Your personality traits. So we had like introvert, empathetic, funny. Your educational background would be an invisible identity. Your familiar your familial dynamic or structure. Like, I'm the only child. You probably wouldn't know that unless I told you. Um, what else? What else? Your hobbies, your personal views and your values, even your political affiliation and or party would fall under your invisible identities. They're probably wondering, why did I just ask y'all to, think about yourselves? But research shows that finding common or shared identities really helps us to be more empathetic and collaborative within the workplace. So you've mentioned all of these things, but if you don't take the time out to get to know who's in your workplace, who you're working with, I wouldn't have known none of these things about you. Well, not even your visible ones because I can't see you guys. But the point is, I wouldn't have known your invisible identities had you not said them. So it's important to know who you're working with in your workplace, because the more you know your colleagues or your peers, the better it is, the easier it is to collaborate and to overcome that fear and distrust that can often come with working with other people that you aren't familiar with. So now we're going to look at some drivers of workplace culture. If you're in public health, you probably have seen this image quite a few times. This is a socio-ecological model. Basically, the point with this is each level influences each other. So a lot of times in the workplace, we get very caught up in the institutional, the community, and the policy level. Like, we're like, the policy and procedures must change, or I need to go to the top person and have them change something about, our policy or things of that nature. But as you can see in the previous activity, there are a lot of things that we bring to our workplace as individuals or that are interpersonal. So your ideas, your values, your religion, your orientation, your educational background, those also play a key part in developing and creating your healthy and inclusive workplace culture. So in the pursuit of creating a healthy and inclusive workplace culture, don't neglect what you bring to the table. Be vocal in what you bring to the table, because your workplace might appear to be not as diverse if you're just looking at it from an outward appearance or from your visible identities. But if you take some time out to look into those invisible identities, your workplace could be a lot more diverse and inclusive than you're giving it credit for, or it can reveal that everyone is one and the same, and that is another conversation that you need to work on, becoming more diverse and inclusive. Sometimes it just starts within. It starts within looking at some of those individual factors. So your marginalized identities and your privileged identities, and things of that nature, and all the things that you guys mentioned within the chat. So it's very easy to say, yes, I want a healthy and inclusive workplace culture. And when I was developing this presentation with another colleague of mine, we decided that it's important to break down, what do each of these words mean? So what is a workplace? What is culture? What is healthy? What is equity focused? What is inclusive? So again, we're going to use a chat. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes, or if you already got it, you can go ahead and drop in the chat. Define workplace. When you think of workplace, what comes to mind? There's no right or wrong answer, and workplace varies depending on each individual, which we'll get into in the next slide. So when you hear workplace, what comes to mind? A place where you work, where I spend most of my waking hours. Colleagues, what you do, where you spend most of your time again. Work family, co-workers. Is it time to go? Y'all are funny. Is it time to go home yet? Teamwork, where you go for your job, the place that pays you, my second family. Place of productivity, where I make a difference the most. Shared mission, professionalism, place of professionalism. A place that helps keep a roof over my head, the easy part of life. Oh, okay. That was a very optimistic answer. Where you go to have money to live in the world, hopefully to help the greater good, resources, head down, butt up, focused on your job, learning and teaching environment. All right. So we got some things that come to mind when you think of your workplace. Let's talk about culture. What comes to mind when you think about culture? Oh, career, passion, and mission. That's good too. Now we're on culture. No more workplace definitions. Culture, what comes to mind? A set of customs shared with a specific group of people, not always inclusive, diversity, background, non-diverse, expectations for interaction, similarities and differences among coworkers, empathy, the way things work, inclusive, vision of the organization, learning. Okay. Now let's go to healthy. Oh, supportive. Okay. A shared environment that everyone contributes to, an environment, unwritten dynamics. All right. Now pause on defining culture. What comes to mind when you think of healthy? What makes something healthy or healthy in regards to your workplace? We have respect for traditions, safe communication, balance. Whoa. Safe, supportive, perspective, human factor, balance. Oh, y'all are really good about this healthy one, huh? Okay, encourage yourself. Okay, oh my God. Being heard, supported, valued, being included, being supportive, positive, emotionally safe, confidentiality, positive, good for you, feeling welcome, understood, effective communication. All right, good. All right, now pause on a healthy. All right, okay. Conflict resolution. Okay. Now let's look at equity focused. What comes to mind when you think of equity focused? And if these are getting kind of a little bit harder, they're supposed to. So when you think of equity focused, what comes to mind? Person centered, even playing field, treat others the way they want to be treated, accessibility, making sure everyone has what they need, not playing favorites, meeting people where they are, everyone treated with the same respect, regardless of their job title. Well, this is going kind of fast. I'm way better at this than I thought. Fair across the board. People get what they need, equal opportunity, respect differences, access for all employees, equal playing field, diversity, adaptable. All right. Now we're going to pause on the equity focus, fairness. Okay, good. Now, what about inclusive? Some of you guys used inclusive to describe healthy. So now what comes to mind you think of an inclusive workplace? What does inclusive mean? Welcome, feeling safe, everyone included, welcome and safe. Everyone is welcome. You all are saying, okay. Open-mindedness, transparent, bringing everyone to the table. Oh, this is not bad. Safe for everyone. Make that everyone make sure that others also have what they need. Feedback is appreciated. Respect of others' cultures. All right, y'all got some good answers. Open door policy. The rules apply to all. Not feeling as you're different or treated differently. No pressure to conceal your invisible identities. That's a good one. Participatory decision-making, services guided by patient feedback, clients feel safe, shared duties applies, rules apply to all. Yes, those are all good. So feel free to keep sharing if you think of something more. But on this slide, me and my colleague when we created, we kind of went through what we thought of where research said or what research would define some of these things as. So your workplace, something as simple as, are you in person versus remote? As we know, especially once COVID hit, a lot of us went remote. Remote work or hybrid work is the most sought after type of, position now. Nobody wants to go into the office anymore. Everyone wants to work from home, or everyone wants the flexibility to be able to work outside of their in-person workspace. So your physical workspace, some of you guys mentioned where you show up every day, the environment that you're in. My desk could be considered a part of my workplace. What does your environment look like? Like where are you showing up every day to work? Schedule and your hours worked, sedentary versus active. Some people may work a more sedentary job where you spend a lot of time behind your desk. Some of us may work jobs where you're a little bit more active, where you travel a lot, or things of that nature. In regards to being healthy, conditions that increase opportunity for health for all versus for dominant groups. So you guys mentioned, like, is everyone being included in this? Does everyone have access to it? Does everyone feel like they can be the best version of themselves at work? And also it's important to realize that healthy looks different for everyone. So healthy for me could be I could show up to my office every day and close my door and be by myself. Healthy for someone else could be I want to work from home or I want to have the option to come in and leave when I want. I want to keep my door open. I want to talk to everyone. So it's important to be mindful that healthy looks different depending on the person. So that kind of goes to the next one. Are we looking at it from an individual standpoint or an organizational standpoint? And sometimes, not sometimes, it's really important to find that balance of both. Because sometimes it really is hard to please everybody. But if you're being intentional with your colleagues and getting to know your colleagues, there shouldn't be a reason why someone shouldn't feel healthy within their workplace. So as far as culture goes, values, shared norms, beliefs, food, music, place, religion, all the things that you guys mentioned, some of those more invisible identities would fall under here. Your intersecting identities, dominant groups versus non-dominant groups. So I'm Black and I'm a woman. So those are my intersecting identities. Those are the non-dominant groups in terms of society. Toxic versus healthy. And for who? So like I said before, that could look different from person to person. What I might think is very toxic, someone else might think is the healthiest thing for them. So equity focused. Whose job is it? Is it a select few / add-ons, or is it everyone's job? Everyone's job, and is it worked into your daily job? Is everyone carrying their share or their workload? Is it collaborative? Is everyone being able to vocalize, their needs and have them assessed at the table? Addressing systemic inequities and oppression, you kind of can't have an equity-focused workplace without talking about some of those systemic inequities and oppressions that occur. Disaggregated data, transparency, accountability, trust, critical reflection, and action. When it comes to action, making sure that it's ongoing. It's not, oh, we talked about it this one day and it never got brought up again. Like who's responsible for making sure that it's an ongoing process, which in theory, it's everyone's job. Consider the impact of decisions and policies on marginalized populations. And inclusive, feeling seen and heard. Everyone at the end of the day wants to be seen, heard, and valued in their workplace. Setting conditions for sharing of power. So is there opportunity for, even if I don't have the highest title or the highest paying role in my job, do I feel like I still have some power in regards to making decisions to creating a healthy workplace environment? Psychological and physical safety, belonging, and open-mindedness. So next we're going to look into what the workforce is currently saying about the workplace. Actually, before I go to the next slide, share in the chat, what do you think the workforce is currently saying about workplace culture? Harsh conditions. People want flexibility. That is lacking empathy. No work-life balance. Demands for flexibility. Let the social worker do it. Stressful, clicks, wanting flexibility, needing to find value in what they're doing. Work-life balance and living wage for today's costs. Yes. Lack of responsibility. 4-day work week, ? Yes. There's lots of research being done in regards to 4-day work week being the standard across the country, I guess, the world. It lacks education in certain minority groups. Many small groups report feelings unheard and overlooked. The value of workforce is doing a good job. All right, so we got a variety of answers here. So there's I should have linked it. Actually, I think it's at the very end, but there's a website that focuses on workplace health. Like their entire focus, mission is to conduct research in regards to workplace culture, and they produce these results and stats, and it's kind of like the hub. It's at the end. If you're interested in the link, it'll be there. I can't think about the top of my head. But so how's the workforce doing? US workers are among the most stressed in the world. 4-day work week and naps, I'm sure. Yes, the stats are not surprising. I know, right? 40% of workers reported their jobs were very or extremely stressful. 75% of employees believe that workers have more on the job stress than generations before. 80% of workers feel the stress on the job. Nearly half say they need help learning how to manage stress. And 42% say their coworkers also need that help. More than 24 million employees left their jobs between April and September of 21. And toxic work culture is a leading reason why employees are leaving their job. So it's not about the pay, not about the benefits, not about the perks. It's the fact that their workplaces are toxic. They're not healthy. So what is a toxic workplace? We throw this word around. It's kind of like the new trendy word to say for everything. Oh, that relationship is toxic. Oh, that job is toxic. Oh, that person's toxic. So there was a study conducted. Will these slides be shared? Yes, they will. where basically the people who conducted this research, they analyzed 34 million online employee profiles for people who left their jobs for any reason between April and September of 21. They pulled mainly a large sample size, mainly from large for-profit companies. And they also analyzed over 1.4 million Glassdoor reviews. So this is that research that I was talking about before, where they kind of just have the central hub where they're conducting all this research, they're gathering all the things and putting all in this one place. So based on the study that was conducted, companies with a reputation for a healthy culture had lower turnovers, which isn't surprising. Toxic organizational culture is the strongest predictor of overturn, 10.4 times more powerful than compensation. So like I said before, people aren't leaving because the pay sucks. I mean, some people probably are, especially now with this inflation, but a lot of it just has to do with their workplaces being toxic or not good for their mental health, especially like with COVID and with the social injustices. People have a less tolerance to be in toxic environments, or they're trying to preserve themselves. So if you're spending most of your time at your workplace, which some of you guys vocalized earlier, you're less likely to want to stay somewhere where you're not able to, be healthy or show up in the best versions of yourself. So toxic workplace culture includes failure to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. Workers feel disrespected and unethical behavior. So in looking at this, we've mentioned a few times that it's important to really look at your marginalized, your oppressed, those that are affected by the systems that are in place. So our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek McMurthy, released a report last September calling for action to improve workplace culture, specifically within public health and healthcare. But I do think that this report is applicable to all fields, whether it's education, fast food, sales, marketing, all the things. So it emphasized that some of our more disproportionate groups are feeling the effects of unhealthy workplace cultures a little bit more than others because they're already dealing with these marginalized or oppressed identities. So some of those groups in this report included health workers of color, immigrant health workers, female health workers, low-wage health workers, and health workers in rural communities. So his big recommendation after doing this study and creating this report was that we really need to focus on workplace culture and changing the environment that we're working in, especially post COVID, and especially just 2020 as a whole. After 2020, everyone should be thriving to want to create a healthy workplace culture. Because like I said, I think 2020 really highlighted some issues that were already happening behind the scenes or that we weren't as vocal about. And then once 2020 hit, everyone's just like, I can't be found anymore. So this report just really focused on addressing health worker burnout. Like I said, while it's health worker specific, I do think it's applicable to all fields as far as like action steps and things that we can be doing to better our workplaces. So what are employees looking for today in a workplace? Some of you guys mentioned, 4-day work week and naps. Flexibility. People are emphasis on flexibility. Honestly, and flexibility will cover a lot of these things. So the report that I mentioned in previous slide, the big thing that came from that was wanting to transform organizational cultures to prioritize health workers' well-being and values, shift burnout from a me problem to a we problem. And like I said, I think this could apply to everyone, regardless of what field you're in. So what are employees looking for? They're looking for, us to identify and measure factors contributing to burnout. So at first you have to know what you're working with. You have to know where your organization is with before you can even continue conversation of what to change. Increase employee diversity, identify racist and discriminatory behaviors to inform solutions, build equity-centered data systems, ensure living and competitive wages, evaluate workload and working hours, family-friendly policies, cultivate relationships and social connections. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, the more you know about your colleagues, the better you're able to trust and collaborate with them. Open communication. So I saw someone in here, I mentioned like the open door policy. Participatory management. So a lot of people are wanting their management to be involved in what's happening within a workplace. A lot of times, the higher you go up in an organization, the less people you see or the less involvement you have, depending on where you're at on that tier. So people are wanting for their management to be actively involved in what's going on in the workplace. Affordable, confidential, and convenient mental health care. Now we're gonna do a little activity. I'm not sure how familiar you all are with Mentimeter, but we're gonna look at your ideal workplace versus your actual workplace. So if you don't mind, go to mentimeter.com, you enter this code. I'm actually gonna type the code in the chat as well so that you all can just copy paste it. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and share the Mentimeter screen. So okay, can someone say in the chat that they're seeing the Mentimeter screen and not my presentation still? Perfect, amazing. So what you're gonna do, the website's also on top of here. Go to this website, type in a code, and it's gonna ask you these questions and you'll see it pop up on the screen as you guys type in your responses. This also might be easier to do on your cell phones versus like on your computer. All right, so we have friendly, supportive, calm, teamwork, welcoming, safe for all, no micromanagement, community driven, supportive. And just so you know, the words that are said the most are the ones that are the biggest or in the center. So right now, supportive, safe, and flexible are what most of you guys are wanting out of your ideal workplace. Encouraging, fair and inclusive, helping hands, prevention focused, wow, understanding, safe, home, reasonable, flexible hours, forward thinking, cooperative, casual, kind, uplifting, enjoyable. There are a lot of you guys in here, so I really don't even know how long till this go on for, so everyone has an opportunity. But I might have to cut some of you guys short. Right now I have 54 responses, and there's 157 of you guys in here. Thinking when I hit about 100, I might go on to the next question. Harmony, less stress, peace, dignity, collaborative, laughter. I like the word. Helping hands, knowledgeable, dependability, positive reinforcement. It's a good one. Collaborative, ask for staff input, pay me good money, LOL. That's funny. Wellness, non-judgmental, joyful, direct, flexible for families, work from home, clear expectations, equal, stress breaks, pay for worth. All right, so our big ones that I'm not straining my eyes to see. We have flexible, supportive, safe, peaceful, inclusive, friendly, happy, encouraging, fun, positive, teamwork, diverse, and safe. I think I've nipped most of those. So these are things that you look for in your ideal workplace. There's some things happening in the chat, but I just want to check it now. Some of you guys are typing in your responses. That's cool. Meaningful, supportive security opportunities for growth, growth, able to freely express my opinions, non-toxic. Amazing. So now we're going to look at what is your actual workplace culture like. And this is an opportunity to be honest. I can't see who's saying what. And also, so you can say what you want. It's not offending me. It might be awkward if a coworker's on here, but then again, it's anonymous. There's just an opportunity to be vocal and to really think about what your actual workplace is like. Flexible, supportive, autonomous, chaotic, masculine, ingenuine, unorganized, faux supportive, I guess, like fake supportive. Okay. Fast paced, overwhelming, white. That's funny. That was funny. Patriarchal. I can't say that word, but I know what it is. Feminine, too many hats, prophet, racist, bullying, reactive, unorganized, unclear expectations, not diverse, drama, impact driven, outside of the box thinking, non-communicative, nepotism, I can't say that word. Run by a woman, inconsistent, micromanaged, family, hesitant, rules don't apply to all, so unethical, fairly supportive, demanding, empowering, that's good. Boring, I'm so sorry. Clicky, loyal, superficial, has favorites. Loving is on here. Okay. Virtual, divisive, ambiguous. All right, so there are less responses on this one. I don't know if people are still lingering on the other one, but take your time. I also want to make sure that I make it through this PowerPoint and have time for questions. So obviously, as you can see, what our actual workplace is and what our ideal workplace is, it overall is very different. So then this in itself should encourage you to want to take action to change your workplace. Like, how can you make your workplace be more supportive, be more genuine, feel safe, make you want to show, make you happy, make you laugh. Because here we have bigger words. Our bigger words are micromanaged, overwhelmed, unorganized, ingenuine, stressful. Supportive is the biggest word. So I guess that's a good thing if overall you feel supportive in your workplace. We have flexible is also pretty big. We have chaotic and demanding. So this is kind of, a little reality check to see if you're actually getting what you want out of your workplace. And I'm checking into the chat really quick. We have, except these have identifiers, but shout out to y'all for being both. We have non-toxic supportive, we have transphobic, very supportive, they promote self-care. I'm very glad that your workplace does that. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing, I'm gonna head back to the PowerPoint. Thank you guys for participating in this. Okay, now I need my screen. I actually have my PowerPoint on here too. Trying to get my setup back. I had my chat sitting over and I was able to see everything. All right, can someone confirm that you're looking at the PowerPoint again and not still on Mentimeter? Perfect, thank you kindly. All right, so the big question is how can we and I said whatever role because I'm aware that a lot of us in here, we have different roles, we're involved in different things. So how can we as whatever roles that we hold create a healthy, equity-minded and inclusive workplace culture? And I'm sure most of you guys are probably familiar with SMART goals. A lot of times, everyone wants to talk about your goals being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. But in looking at research to develop this presentation, there's like a new one that people are creating, and it's called Smarty. And if you know the candy Smarty, I thought that was cute. But they created to also include inclusive and equitable, so that in the process of creating your goals also are inclusive and equitable. So if you're in a place where you want to make workplace changes and you're creating these goals, let's look at Smarty versus SMART goals. What are your Smarty goals? You know, how are these goals that you're setting also being inclusive and equitable to everyone in your workplace? So I'm not sure how familiar this group is because I also can't see anything. But anyways, there's this book called Inclusion on Purpose, which focuses on an intersectional approach to creating a culture of belonging at work. So if you're on a hunt or you're wanting to really pursue, creating a healthier workplace, this is a great resource to use. I haven't read the book in full, but my colleague has, and she stands by, she swears by it. She's like, we have to put this in the presentation. But in the bits I have read and the parts that I'm familiar with, I do highly encourage you guys to look into reading this book or look into the resources or things that stand out from this book. So we decided to focus on this idea of bridge, where you're focusing on systems and not individuals. So it's okay to be uncomfortable within some of these conversations, or be uncomfortable in pursuing a healthy workplace. Because a lot of times it requires you to deal with some of the uncomfortability, well, things that we're comfortable in that we shouldn't be comfortable in. And it's hard to get out of that. And getting out of some of these habits it's going to be uncomfortable. Um, you want to reflect on what you don't know. No one in here knows everything. No one in here knows the best thing for your workplace. It's a collaborative thing. So you want to invite feedback, especially if you're in a position of power. You want to make sure that you're inviting feedback from your team or from, I don't want to say below you because that sounds bad, but there are tiers for people that aren't in as a position of power as you are. You make sure that they feel included and feel heard, and that you're also open to inviting feedback. Because a lot of times, a lot of bosses, not to, a lot of bosses or higher ups, they aren't as open to hearing what others have to say because they're on somewhat of a pedestal. So I think it's important to be able to and willing to come down and invite some of that feedback. Defensiveness doesn't help. When you're uncomfortable, it's easy to become defensive, especially if assuming that your intentions are pure. It's really hard to sit there to hear someone say that this isn't workplace, that this isn't working. So if your boss or whoever might think that the workplace is healthy and suddenly you go to them, you're like, hey, this isn't, they can kind of get defensive, especially if their intentions are pure and their intentions were never to create an unhealthy environment. So now it's being brought to them. So defensiveness doesn't help. Grow from your mistakes. Like I said, no one's perfect. No one knows all of what they're doing within the workplace. And expect that change takes time. I mentioned before that like this is an ongoing process. This isn't like a one step and now we're done. Changes do take time. So especially from like a policy level or an institutional level, like everyone has someone to answer to. So before your boss could grant you a 4-day work week, they probably have someone to answer to. Or before they can, I don't know, what else do people want? Allow a hybrid work environment or allow you to work from home, they might have to be able to pay for your computers or your workplace setting at home. So understanding that some of these changes just will take time. The inclusion mindset requires empathy for people who are different from you. So like I said, no one knows everything, and creating a healthy workplace culture should include everyone within the workplace, not just those in positions of power. Now we're going to look at evaluation. I'm a big fan of evaluation. I love evaluating things. In grad school, all I did was evaluate. So evaluation is the process of judging or calculating or the quality or importance of something. It's an assessment. So for my workplace specifically, as I almost said, EA evaluation, I feel that. For our workplace specifically, I had to create a workplace evaluation for our org. And I got to sit down with my boss and like go through all of our benefits, our perks, and looked at other people's evaluations and kind of pulled from all these resources and really tailored it toward our organization. Because my boss in the place where you realize that things are changing, things have changed since 2020, and we need to evaluate and see where our workplace is, how people are feeling about it, and things of that nature. And I was really excited to be a part of that. Because like I said, I love evaluating. So some evaluation topics, if you are in a place where you want to create an evaluation for your job, employee engagement, personal satisfaction and growth, employee recognition, career goals and aspirations, processes and functionality of your organization, employee benefits, and if you're doing that and you have, some that are full-time, part-time, or seasonal, making sure that, they have a place to vocalize their needs specific to their position slash role, and company perks. So when we created this eval, these are the same exact topics that we use in our eval, and underneath that a little descriptor and then some questions to go along with that. But some of the outcomes of doing this eval is we got to implement a 4-day work week in the summer. So in the summer for us is what I call like our dead season. So my boss was like, well, let's try this out. Let's do this in the summer, go to a 4-day work week and see how that works out. So we got to do that. And I'm pretty sure we're doing it again this summer. So I'm excited. We also got to implement mental health days because we realized that was a very big need, where sometimes the holidays that you get off and your sick days are just not enough to compensate for having just a mental health day. Because as we know, sometimes when you get those holidays off, you're focusing on something else. You're focusing on catering to family, friends, whoever, and doing all the things for holidays versus actually focusing on yourself and your mental health. And another thing that we also got to do was have, so if you're in therapy or want to pursue therapy, your therapy session counted as a work hour. So you didn't have to take time off of work to go to therapy. You don't have to do it, say, like after hours. Like if you need an hour for your session, you're able to do that. And we get to do that for 1 hour a week. So if you're having therapy every week, one of those hours in your work hour, it counts towards that. I also want to talk about just like some limitations and things with our eval. We are a relatively smaller org, so it was kind of easy to identify who was saying what in the evals, just because we're smaller and we all have very unique personalities. And if you know your colleagues, you know how they speak. Sometimes that translates into how you type things. And also being a nonprofit, we know that most of what we do is based on our funding as well. So some of the things that we wanted to implement or change had to make sure that, we had the funding to do so. So when you are creating your eval, think about some limitations or some things that, might affect the process or how you go about evaluating your workplace. So these are just some example questions. I'm not going to read all of the PowerPoints, but some things to look at. How much do your employees agree that I feel like I belong at this organization? So inclusion. I can voice a contrary opinion without fear of negative consequences. So that's psychological safety. Perspectives like mine are included in decision making. My organization believes that people can greatly improve their talents and abilities. So are you in a place where you can work on your personal growth in your workplace or your professional growth in your workplace? So that's a growth mindset that you're able to see where things are going. And administrative tasks don't have a specific owner and are fairly divided. I said I wasn't going to read all of them, and then I did, but that's okay. How often do you express thanks to others? Recognize others for their contributions, honor and make space, and encourage people to be themselves. Give people benefit of the doubt, and treat others as worthy of respect. And at the bottom, I included that same inclusion on purpose book, but also another book called Joy at Work, which kind of dives into healthy workplace cultures as well. So some other strategies for creating a healthy, equity-focused workplace is to conduct a yearly evaluation. So we did our evaluation last February, March, maybe. But now we're in a position where I'm currently editing our one from last year and working on one to disseminate again for this year. So like even if nothing changes after this year's eval, it's nice to see where your organization's at, or did the changes we make last year make a difference in this year? It's employees want to feel heard or feel seen or know that you are always actively working towards and bettering their workplace. I forgot to say, this is like as an employer. Develop a code of conduct, run inclusive meetings, follow up, provide updates. So if you say you're going to change something, keep your employees in the loop of where you're at in that process. Model a work-life balance. Build opportunities to formally recognize individual and team goal achievements. And then as an employee, and these can also be for as an employer, but get to know your colleagues. Like I said in the very beginning, it's important to know who you're working with, what you're dealing with, so that you know how to move forward in creating this healthy workplace. Participate in your employee engagement surveys and evaluations. If a link comes out for you to take an eval and you don't take the eval, you can't expect for anything to change. So make sure you're doing your part by taking the eval and that you're being vocal and you're being honest in these evaluations. Some feelings may be hurt in the process, but that's okay. That's the point of being uncomfortable and not being defensive when these things are brought to you. Actively engage in diversity efforts. I would love to have this PowerPoint even outlines. And then I would like to. The PowerPoint will be shared. Actively engage in diversity efforts. So your persons of color or your marginalized group should not be the only one working towards diversity efforts. It should be everyone working towards it. Commit to continuous improvement. Understand that the diversity implements that you personally bring to your workplace. Like I mentioned earlier, your invisible identities. What do you bring to the table? What do you know? Like, what are your thoughts and beliefs and values can play a part in how you create this healthy, equity-focused workplace. So some takeaways, ask the right questions. So what is the narrative? What are you wanting to get out of this? Whose job is it? Who's in a position of power to make these changes? Who should be in positions of power to make these changes? Relationships matter. Your language matters. I know, especially like, I don't want to say in today's age, because I am in today's age, but we're becoming very mindful of some of the words that we use in certain settings, or in all settings really. Or like if, you know, a lot like we don't use the R word anymore. We don't like the word crazy is, we don't use the word crazy or things of that nature. So being mindful of the language that you're using and also keeping up to date as that changes, because what was okay to say and use before or a year ago might not be okay to say and use today. So you have to do your part, make sure that you're knowledgeable about what language is being used, what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, what's inclusive language versus non-inclusive language. And we show compassion and empathy and collaboration. You want to listen deeply, act intentionally, reflect frequently. So self-awareness, you have to be very aware of where you're at and how your thoughts and ideas and feelings and how you present yourself affects your workplace. And a lot of this will require a lot of learning and unlearning. A lot of times, like I said, we get so stuck in some of these, habits or, well, this is how it's always been mindsets. And it's sometimes really hard to, not sometimes, most times it's really hard to unlearn a lot of these habits that we've developed. Also recognizing that this is everyone's job. This is not one person's job. And that it is an ongoing process. And that is it. So any final thoughts and questions, my email is there if you are interested in reaching out. And Casey has dropped the link for the evaluation. The QR code is also on our screen. And we have 7 minutes. I told y'all I was going to make sure I stayed within this hour. So.
Thank you, Janae. Anyone has any questions, please feel free to add those to the chat or the Q&A. Just a reminder, you will receive your certificate along with the recording of the training as well as a PDF to all the slides today. In the future, if you're interested in a training, Casey will put information for all of our presenters depending on where you're located. Casey is in the Northeast. Sarah is in the Southeast. Janae, where you are in the...
I'm in East. I'm in the middle.
Okay. You're in the middle. And then Caitlin is in the Knoxville area, correct?
Yes. Her and I are in the
Okay.
same place. Allie, if you email me, I'd be happy to share the eval that I created.
This is our last of our 4 series Lunch and Learn. So it has been a pleasure to work with you all. It is my very last event and training that I will be doing. I'm leaving the position of with Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth at the end of the week. So what a great way to wrap it up with you all. So thank you all so much.
Also, if you get a copy of the slides, the resources and things that I referenced are also on here. I forgot to
Okay.
but
One question, how would you respond to a supervisor who does not think improving workplace culture is an investment for our company?
Um, I I will say that there's power in numbers, and I'm not saying this in a way to like gang up on your boss and like ambush them. But if you are feeling like your workplace isn't the healthiest, chances are there's someone else in your workplace that feels the same way. So maybe start to ask questions. Not it doesn't have to be as direct as do you think our workplace is toxic, but like what's working or what's not working? Are there things you think should be better? And I would say if multiple people are going to your boss about the same thing, eventually they have to cave in. And if they don't, your boss probably answers to someone else. And a lot of times, a lot of people get offended or upset when you go around your leadership. But ultimately, if your direct line of leadership isn't doing what needs to be done or isn't wanting to change, you might have to just work around them. That can be that can get a little bit messy, but I will say there's definitely powers in numbers. So find someone within your org that feels the same way, or talk to them, see where they're at, and approach your boss as a hey, collectively we feel this way versus a I feel this way. So make instead of that I statement, make it a we state, and they'll probably be more inclined to listen if they know that multiple people at the workplace feel a certain type of way.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Again, thank you all for joining. I think a lot of you have joined us for all 4 of our trainings, so I hope you've enjoyed. You will receive the certificate along with the recording and the PDF to the slides. We do have Children's Advocacy Days next week in Nashville, so please bear with us and give us a little extra time in getting you your certificates. But again, thank you. I hope,
Any ideas that anyone thinks about supervising and reflecting this I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question.
any idea
That's
for
simple.
taking things up the chain, direct supervisor? Oops.
Trying to be
Trying-
effective if it's significant for a box or to state. I'm not sure if this is gonna help, but I don't know. Do most places have like a board of directors of some sort, or if you have an external person or collaborator, someone who has a strong pull in what happens within your organization, um, might be a route to go. So I know like for nonprofits, we have a board of directors that we have to answer to, and they hold some of that power. So maybe approaching them instead. I'm not sure if I'm answering this right because I'm not sure if I understood your question 100%. But I would say maybe seeking some external help, or there are people who are trained for things like this. So maybe you have to get a facilitator, or someone said chain of command would be appropriate to start with the HR department. So yeah, the way you approach your workplace changes is gonna differ depending on your position, your job, your role. It's kind of just figuring out those little nuances. But I definitely say still work with the team, find someone that supports you in this process because it could get hard to do it by yourself. So yeah. There's an org called A Better Balance.
Thank you for sharing, Shanna.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. That's what I was getting at. I was gonna say there are people who are trained to do this. If you have to hire someone from an outside or hire a facilitator to come in and have these hard conversations, that's what they're there for. So
Again, thank you all for joining us.
thanks for joining and
Have a great week.
participating. Yes. Bye.
Casey, can you stay on for 1 minute? Bye. Thank you so much.
Yes.